Welcome back. You are watching The Core, and we are discussing the proposed value-added tax increase. Now, you can join the conversation if you are at home on our social media handles, Twitter at Channels TV or at Kadria Ahmed, my own personal Twitter handle. We are also on YouTube at Channels Web. Please use the hashtag NGTheCore to ensure that we get your comments. You can also follow us on Facebook as Channels Forum. Now, before the break, we were having a conversation regarding the sort of validity, if you like, of tax. And Dr. Justina was making the point that it is a valid and legitimate way for government to raise revenue, to be able to carry out all the things that need to be carried out. And she was talking about the issue really is about how the money is spent. But I'm saying before we even start looking at the trust deficit issue, which is what I call it, because Nigerians don't trust government to use money to do certain things, there are those who argue that the Nigerian economy is not productive enough right now to basically be able to swallow or deal with an increase in VAT. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, again, let me set the premise because it's a case of the chicken and the egg. When you talk about productivity, there are certain things that must be in place to facilitate and enhance productivity. It's important for us to understand the fact that we are really in a very tough situation. And I take it from a household angle. If, for instance, you are a parent, you are a family, and you wake up and find out that your source of revenue is being cut into half, and you have, the first thing you probably ask yourself is, if you have been balancing your book, you already have a gap. What do I then need to do? You either go and look for additional revenue, or you quickly begin to cut some expenses. Certain things you were doing before, you probably choose not to do it. If you're paying your child's school fees and that child have access to loan, you tell the child, go and take the loan. The bottom line is that as far as Nigeria is concerned now, the revenue that government is generating cannot cover its expenditure. And there are many ways to it, because even this tax will not solve the problem. Government will sit and ask itself, what can we do well? And what should we be doing by ourselves? What should we allow private sector to do and handle? Because if you keep on taking out some expenses, and then you then can't fund it, and you then raise up tax, and you're just using those expenses to deal with recurrent expenditure, then you haven't solved the problem, because ability to create the room for capital, for productivity is not there. If you listen to part of the excuses given, 80% of this additional money will go to states to pay tax, and 20% will come. So it's just recurrent expenditure. Meanwhile, at NESG, we conducted some research to look at exactly what is the morale of people towards tax. What the people will tell you, businesses will tell you, if we're sure there is power, if road is good, we are willing and ready to pay more taxes. Household will tell you, if education is right, if health is available, we will pay more taxes. So, it's not that people don't want to pay taxes. What people are saying is that, look, when we pay these taxes, what do we spend them on? And so government needs to look at the profile of the expenses. The one that needs to be let go, you let them go. And so that we can actually spend time on what government can do better and allow private sector to take up what it needs to take up so that we can generate revenue.
And I'll come back and ask you what specifically you think the private sector can do. But I want to quickly talk to Justina. He's made a very strong point. A lot of the deficit is funding consumption. And that is part of the problem. Why, when people who sort of try to justify the increase in taxes, not just VAT, any sort of tax will tell you that it is not doing what it should do, and that is the problem. What are your thoughts regarding that and how to tackle that issue?
Yeah, that's actually the problem. Just like you mentioned, I have also carried out a research on this, and the attitude of quite a number of people is would be positive if they could see the impact of such in their lives. And what do I mean by this? If we look at things like infrastructural development, there are some infrastructure that could be concessioned. Let me give you an example of road. Some of these major roads, Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja, Lokoja, Benin, Port Harcourt, all those major ones that carry a lot of trucks, loaded vehicles, they need to be concession to the private people. And all they need to do is to toll it and use whatever they generate from the toll to maintain the roads. If government could hands off some basic things, then the revenue generator will be able to sort out some areas like hospitals. If you look at a lot of our hospitals, there are no facilities.
Okay. Before we go into that, I want to just speak to Mr. Ayo Bankole. And one of the specific things that the minister mentioned in announcing the consultation for this prospective increase is that they are going to give states money to fund the minimum wage. There is an implication there that if they don't succeed in getting that increase that they're looking for, states may not actually get their minimum wage. What do you think about that almost quid pro quo that she seemed to be implying?
Okay. So, just as Dr. Lawi Jayola said, you can't be increasing taxes to fund salaries. It's not sustainable, both in the short and the long term. Before you know it, you're going to, overspend the income that you have tried to increase, and then we'll be back to square one. There are more sustainable models. We can decide to adopt restructuring. Let the states control some percentage of their resources. You have a lot of mining, going on in some states, and even the federal government is not even in control of these mining activities. That's a lot of revenue happening. So if the states have some control over what the resources that they have, some of the resources that they generate, each state can be productive or can be creative. Even the VAT administration itself, some countries allow the states to implement it. So, for example, in the United States, they don't have a national VAT, but they have state sales tax. So, different states administer their sales taxes at different rates that they want. So, it allows states to be creative with generating income. It allows states to be competitive, right? But, if you say you want to increase VAT, and then you are going back to spend that money in the same handout model that has led us to where we are at the moment, then it's dead on arrival. It's a stillbirth. And again, looking back at the other excuse that they give, which is about government being broke. Fantastic, government is broke. But then there's no guarantee that increasing VAT is going to stop government from being broke. As a matter of fact, history has showed us that some economies, in their bid to increase revenue, will reduce tax, all types of taxes. I'll give you another example. President Ronald Reagan implemented one of the biggest tax cuts in U.S. history, and revenue jumped from about $344 billion to about $550 billion.
Let me bring in Mr. Okahaya. It is true that economists say sometimes the way to actually grow the economy is to increase people's ability to actually spend. And that can be a trigger. And too much taxes can actually force people to stop spending, because when they're not sure of income and how to spend and all of that. What are your thoughts? I mean, you work in, so I want to take this outside the realm of sort of, if you like, academics, and into the realm of people like you who are sort of in the front line of buying and selling. What is your experience of what happens to people's purchasing powers?
Look, the truth is this. We just came out of recession. And the recession weakened the purchasing power of citizens. That's one. Two is that the states we just talked about were the same states that were given bailouts. The $640 billion, there's still an issue now of returning the money. Nobody's looking at that. These are the same states that you want to give our VAT money. That is like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And majority of our people are in the poverty bracket. We need to understand this. The people who are going to be the consumers, the eventual consumers, majority of them, over 70% of these people, are within this poverty bracket.
Okay.
Poverty is increasing, and I think that is important for us to now fashion out. I am not against this, but if we pick up specific consumer commodities that are attached to the elites, then we might be running away.
So rather than a universal increase.
Exactly. Rather than a universal increase. And then let it be through a process of, discussion that will, evoke buy-in by the people. Thank you.
All right, I will come back to that issue, but I want to open up the conversation to the people in the audience. Comments, questions, please keep it as short as possible. And we'll take like 3 before we come back to the panel, starting with the lady in front over there.
May I be seated?
Yes, please.
Good evening, panelists and my colleague on the other side. My name is Princess Halima Jubri. I'm an integrated marketing communication professional, a gender activist, and good governance. VAT is about to be increased. The country, that is what a lot of people are discussing. An economy that is not diversified, for instance, where minerals are buried under the soil. Nobody goes there to tap them. And even those tapping them, nobody knows how much they are making from it. The agri-sector is not boosting because farmers can't go to the farm because of herdsmen clashes and others. And then you want to increase VAT. What I keep saying is that palliatives don't run an economy. Most of the things we have done in this country are palliatives. Because when that government leaves, the government that comes in doesn't even know where to start from. So, and then Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. So how can Nigerians have an increase? And there's what is called specific sector waivers. Like Ghana just announced that their manufacturing sector, that they are going to waive VAT for them. And it's an open waiver. They didn't say for 2, 3, or 4 years, perhaps until that sector picks up, before they will now know whether they need to stop it or they need to add more years to it. And the public-private partnership in Nigeria, does it work? By-Cotney took over Lagos, Ibadan, Lagos, Benin, Shagamu, right from Obasanjo days. Till today, that road has not been completed. And then the monies realized from whatever oil revenue, even the current VAT system, the monies are not used well by the government.
Okay.
Because contracts are overinflated.
Thank you very
and
much.
are not executed.
Okay, thank you.
And those executed are not up to standard.
Madam, I have to give somebody else an opportunity to talk. Yes,
because a lot of Nigerians are angry.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Who is somebody else raised there? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Good evening, and the panelists and my co-commentators. My name is Kudirat Abdelhamid, and my contribution on this, it is better to get to the basis. To finance government expenditure requires implementable budget. It had been allowed to be just on chance in the past. And that is why we find ourselves where we are. It is the responsibility of government to provide these basic amenities, and they require revenue. The revenue is to be generated, and it is only when the money has been budgeted for that it can be appropriated.
Okay, so let me understand what you're saying. You're saying the whole structure of the way the government runs their finances, their fiscal policies, all of that, that is where you see the problem.
That is where the problem is.
Okay.
So to increase VAT is not anything new. In fact, it has been long overdue.
So you are for it?
I am for it.
Okay.
Because government needs revenue to expend on carrying out these basic needs.
Okay.
It is only after citizens have made this contribution that they can have the moral justification to demand for these services.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The gentleman behind you, yes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ben Inamudu. I'm a chartered accountant and tax practitioner. I think this VAT increase is government adopting a quick fix to long-term problems. This shortfall in revenue has been there all along, but we've resorted to borrowings to fix these gaps. Now we've borrowed and borrowed. We are kind of running into a pit which we are struggling to get out from. So the next is to jump into the next available alternatives, which will be tax. Now the problem with this is, yes, it will give immediate amelioration to a long-term problem, which is shortfall in revenue. The best way to go is for government to seek measures to increase productivity in the economy. When the economy is productive, there will be employment, and then jobs will be created. People will have money to spend. This is what will drive tax in the long run. So increasing VAT now, yes, will solve the problem on the short run, but in the long run, we will come back to this issue of increasing poverty in the economy.
Okay, the gentleman here, and then we'll come back to the panel. Did I see your hands up? Anybody? It was her, okay. Yes, ma'am.
From Kiss FM radio. Yeah, my worry is definitely we need to increase VAT, but my fear is even if it is increased to 7.2, we might still be having the same problem. I would also like to ask the representative of Chartered Institute of Taxation, without technology, we won't get anywhere. We need to adopt technology to actually make sure that even when there's increase in tax, the right people can be taxed and it can be done efficiently. Because if there's increase and then people begin to pay and still we can't get the value for it, there's a problem. In Western world, there's a card, even when you register for your ID card, and immediately you make a sales or anything, definitely you'll be debited. There's a technology in place to actually make sure that everybody pay what is due. But we have challenge with technology in Nigeria, and until we begin to fix that, I don't think we are going anywhere.
Okay, so let me come back to Mr. Jaila. You heard the views there, that those who believe it is valid but are concerned about the spending, obviously. I mean, it's like you said, it's one of those chicken and egg situations. You've spent extensive time looking at this problem. Tell me what you think are the things that people need to do or the government needs to do.
A couple of things. First and foremost, let's even look at the little one we are collecting. Let's be transparent about it. People want to say value for money collected. You know, you need to prove to people that the money you are taking from them, you are using it effectively. Unfortunately, government has not been good at saying that.
And I mean, I've had people point out to me government expenditure on themselves.
Yeah, I mean, generally, we need to look at our total expenditure. If you look at the platform of the expenditure, we spend quite a lot, even servicing debt we've already collected. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot on salary. What is left for capital expenditure? I mean, in fairness, this government has done quite sizable in the last 4 years. Our capital expenditure is next to nothing. And if we're not careful, we can't do it. But back to what I'm saying, the fact that if you look at even this budget, government today is doing fuel subsidy of close to 1.5 trillion. Mm. When the border was closed, you realize that we actually don't consume as much as we were made to believe. Yeah. That all the subsidy we're giving was going to the entire West African sub-region. So the question we ask ourselves is that if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Subsidy is one thing we cannot afford. We should not subsidize consumption. We should find where we'll put subsidy around production so that it can work very well. That's one. Secondly, we need power. Today, people are not, I always make this explanation. If you look at what you generate as private power in your house, against the tariff you pay for power, you realize that it's light and day. And anytime you want to increase tariff for power, people will say, no, don't do that. If we're going to encourage people to continually invest in power generation, which is critical for production.
Critical, you said, but we are going to have to take a break. We will come back and carry on after the break. Please don't go away.